All right, good, whatever time it is, everybody, for when you're listening to this. This is the second annual TCM Draft Podcast. Hokey and I are here to kind of talk about the first round of the most recent draft for those of you who had picks, and then maybe a couple of favorites in the second and third rounds if we have any, and then just some general league stuff. So here we go. Pick number one in this year's draft went to Baltimore. Second baseman Shane Hurst. What were your thoughts on Shane Hurst?
Well, I wasn't sure he was going to be the first overall pick. I definitely see that he should be a star in terms of contact, gap power, and eye. It will be interesting to see how that defense actually goes. I think overall it was a good pick, especially because I think infield depth is a little weak, but I think there were probably a few better choices all around.
Yeah, when I first was looking at this the other day in preparation for the pod, since I didn't have any picks, I decided to trade mine for players to help me win now. I was a little bit off put when I saw the pick, just because I'm like nothing's jumping out. I mean, yes, he's 19. Yes, he has tons of upside left. But I think again, his amateur stats jump out for the bat, but you worry about the fielding a bit. But again, this isn't 14. This is 18. So fielding does make a bit more of a move in this than not. And if you look at his skills tab and look at his defensive vitals, for a second baseman, they're pretty darn good. Like good movement, great glove work. Like his arm strength's not the highest, but he's at second base. He shouldn't be making these across the infield throws. So gap power's high, eyes high, contact's high. Like I think his bat's not going to be that 400 average, 1200 hops that you see in his amateur stats. But all said and done, he's probably going to have a pretty darn good bat. I mean, he'd be a bat that I'd love to have in Boston, especially with all those gaps out there in Fenway Park. So, was there better picks on the board? Maybe. I mean, you can make that argument at almost any pick in the first round. Was it a good, safe pick? Sure. I don't see anything wrong with it.
Yeah, and I mean, when you look at the park that he's going to go into, being Baltimore, unless he gets traded, of course, he's a right-handed batter, and the way that park is set up, they have 122 stadium effect for right-handed pitchers for home runs. So, if he's going to hit those gaps, maybe what we think will be double and triples 10 will end up actually being a home run. And when you start adding that, maybe he can hit the 15 to 20, even with let's say 70 power. That's still pretty good for an infielder. I think it really just kind of depends how that fielding develops. And as you said, it's really the arm, and he should be able to throw from second to first.
Right. Yeah. I mean, a real life example would be like a Jeff Kent type if that home run power gets a little bit better. And think of it this way too: not only playing Baltimore, he's also playing a ton of games at Fenway and at Yankee Stadium, which is just a home run juggernaut. So, like with all those games in the AL East, like he should hit pretty darn well. So it'll be interesting to see. All right, pick two. Jose Barrios went to the Royals. What do you? This young guy looks to be a guy that in FCM, I think you or I would take in a heartbeat with that much power. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just a crazy amount of power and a fair amount of movement too. I'm a little bit concerned about the control being so much below the overall. The command's a little bit higher, so I think that'll stick relatively close. And he's 17, so I mean, I'm not gonna knock the pick and his high school stats again. High school stats. Let's take that with a big grain of salt that it is. Um, are pretty good. Not a lot of home runs. It doesn't look like ERA is low, but that strikeout to walk ratio is not where you think it should be for a power pitcher of this magnitude. So it must be a control issue. So it'll be if he can overcome that. I mean, could have a very darn good pitcher on your hands here.
Yeah, I think he's definitely the type of person he's pretty much an ace or a bust. I don't think there is any between. I think either he's going to be that big pitcher at the top of your rotation, and if he doesn't hit the vitals, then he can easily become a terrible pitcher, like a Rick Ankiel or something.
Right.
he's definitely got the power and movement, so it really just comes down to like his command probably is going to even out. Uh, maybe 80 or 85, which I think is a healthy amount for such a power hitter or a power pitcher. But that control, he really needs that to boost up. Should kind of be interesting to see how that goes because, as you mentioned, he does seem to walk people at a fairly high rate. But it also affects, your hit by pitch and pass balls, right? Wild pitches. So it should kind of be interesting to see how that one goes. But I think Kansas kind of took the best pitcher because there wasn't a whole lot of pitching that like there's a lot of safe picks, but nothing that really stands out for that ace material.
Yeah, and when you have a pick this high, if there's not a safe ace, which is almost a rarity, and if there was, you probably would have gone one overall anyway. You take the next best thing, even if it is a little bit of a risk. You take the risk. If you're going to be bad, you're going to be bad for a couple of years. It's not like you're getting a one top 10 pick and then you're not going to see another one for a while. So take the risk, take the shot on the pitcher that you think could be the ace. If it pans out, you're a genius. If it doesn't, you just hope nobody remembers.
Yep.
All right, next, Cincinnati took a guy whose name that I'm going to pronounce horribly, but what the hell? Tomas Melingus? Fuck it, close enough for me. Shortstop, 20 years old. Now, let's see about his speed. Is it real speed or is it fake speed? It is realish speed, kinda. Eh,
It's mediocre.
it's fakish. This is the thing about 18 that drives me nuts. These guys, you see 95 speed, you're like, I'm in, great, and then you get them, and they're like, oh, but we don't steal bases that well, and our decision making is poor at best. And you go, but, but why? So, but defense it looks like it's going to be phenomenal. The bat looks like it might be decent. I mean, more against righties than lefty, or more against lefties than righties, but so it might not be there. But that eye being pretty high already, decent gap, decent contact. Why not? Defensive first, solid bat. I'd take him.
Yeah, I'd say he kind of falls into the Shane Hurst. The only difference is that Hurst seems to be more of a solid defenseman at second base, and I really don't think Percy can play him at shortstop. I think he has to go to second base. I don't think he's going to be a very good shortstop, and that's kind of my thing there. Maybe he transitions to a third base, but I don't know if most people would play that type of build at third base.
According to his chart for Tomas, he's a very good fit at third base. So, maybe that's where you go with it. You throw him at third base and hope for the best. Um, but I don't know. I mean, I'd see how a season or two shake out here at shortstop. See if things get a little bit better. I mean, yeah, his amateur numbers for what they're worth, again, grain of salt, are not ideal. So maybe flipping him over to the hot corner, see if he can't take there. And if not, then it's almost a bit of a wasted pick, unfortunately.
Yeah. I don't know. I think there's definitely potential. When I look at his vitals a little bit closer, his lateral movements in 86, not necessarily what I would want at shortstop. That's more of like, the second base. His glove work is great, which is weird that he has a 91 glove work and 72 fielding, but everything else just kind of seems like he's more suited for that second base role where he doesn't have the entire field to kind of have to go towards.
Yeah, you might be right. Well, and again, I know that in 18, defense does better to increase than it does in other versions. So, I mean, you get a couple good bumps on that, and he becomes a very good shortstop. So, he'll be one to watch. He'll be one to keep an eye on as things progress. Brad DeBoer, next outfielder, 17-year-old left-handed hitter, went to the Marlins. It looks like. What do you think of him?
I actually really like this pick. I think his arm is kind of, garbage, which honestly in the outfield, it seems to be the case for left fielders, regardless of what mogul you play. But he's got the potential that his eye is fairly good. He's got the medium to high level gap power and regular power. And all his stats are based better to be against righties than lefties. So, I mean, in terms of that, it's pretty good. And his speed is not terrible. His decision making looks pretty bad. But once again, all those type of vitals kind of jump. It's just going to be interesting how it fits into Miami, because Miami's got a lot of young outfielders. When you look at their team, they have about 6 really good outfielders.
Well, good news for them. If you open up the skills tab and look at the diamond, guess what the best fit position is for Mr. Bradley?
Probably.
Shortstop. Says best fit shortstop. I wouldn't do it. But, if he has that many good outfielders, he's 17. Maybe you'd take the shot and hope his arm gets a little bit better. I know I've been in leagues where I've played weak arm shortstops, and it's not the worst thing to do, but it doesn't generally go overly well.
Yeah, I think that would be very interesting to see. I'm actually kind of curious how that would work, considering he doesn't even have any experience in his college numbers.
Yeah, it's just one of those weird things about this version of the game. Like they'll just say, "No, he's better over here. Just throw him there." But he's never played there. Hey, it's fine. Just try it. Mm, You know. So you maybe you take a shot there and see if maybe it is his best fit. Maybe the game is right, and give it a couple seasons. And if not, no harm, no foul. You're
It's
not
true.
going to greatly stunt a poor arm left fielder's development by trying up at shortstop for a little bit. So. All right, next we have a third baseman that went to the White Sox, Ross Albrino. Um, Here's another guy that I don't think is going to stick at the position that he's at. I think he'll end up more for first baseman. His defense is poor, to say the very least. But his bat isn't. His bat is pretty nice. I mean, he's one of those guys that looks like he's going to have power eye and newly added gap power over here. I mean, he looks like a guy that's probably just going to mash the ball. Again, I would not leave him at third base. I'd throw him over to first, but all 4 seasons there, over OPS over 1,000, almost all over 1,100. I mean, dude's going to mash, but just not at third base.
Yeah, he's pretty much a DH, I think, is how I would describe him. Maybe his vitals go well enough that he's decent at first base, but when I look at that, I look at DH, and don't get me wrong, that's definitely the type of person you want at DH. It's just for me, it's always top 5 pick. It's very hard to take that first baseman DH style type of player unless he's going to be the best at the position. And the thing with this guy is he's 17, and I may not like his contact just based on the builds that I create, but everything there being, his eye 10 points above his overall, his gap power being 15 over his overall, regular power 13 over. Like, if he hits that 94 peak, there is no question that he is going to be hitting 40, 50 home runs with like a 280 to or like 275 average.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the thing too. If you look at his contact for his as it is, and, it's not bad. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying it's that borderline scary contact. But against righties, it's only one. It's at his overall, only one below his overall contact. So even if that's not going to pace that way as he progresses, but if it paces to the point where it gets to say 85 versus righties, then Jesus, you like just throw him out there. No matter where you can put him, who cares? He's just going to absolutely mash the ball. Um, but it's an if. I mean, he's 17, so he's got a lot of room to work. And if he does, again, he should end up very uh, scary. So the next pick was an actual first baseman. Again, potentially DH. We'll see. To the San Diego Padres, Mateo Howard went a 18-year-old right-handed hitter um, who has just a much more progressed vitals already than the last gentleman we were talking about. So, what do you think about Mr. Howard?
Uh, you know what? I think that he definitely has a lot of the vitals that I like. I'm more concerned with that eye. So
It's poor.
yeah, and see, this goes back to the whole like I don't really draft hitters well mentality. But when I look at like what scares me the most isn't the fact that he has a 69 and 59 eye. It's the capability of like his hit to right side is 74. His sack fly is 72. I mean, his hit and run is 84, so maybe he doesn't do a lot of like strike him out, throw him out types, but there's a lot of things there that if he doesn't hit it to the proper side, like because I don't think it's right or left side, right? I think it's if he hits it to the opposing side that he's facing,
Yeah.
that if he keeps hitting it towards the first or second, he's not going to outrun a lot of things. Like that's basically the only concern I have is like anyone can strike out, and it doesn't look that terrible. But at the same time, his um, you know walking capability, we'll kind of see how that goes.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see that his walks to Ks are not as bad as you would think. Like this year, he's walks, including intentional, 15 times and struck out 25 times. And then the year before, it was 11 walks to 19 strikeouts. So it's not before that 11 to 25. Like it's not, and then 10 to 23. So they're all about the same. I mean, he's striking out maybe twice as much more, but it's not what you would expect to see with somebody with such a poor eye. And again, personally, eye is one of those things that I always like in my hitters. I always want a really good eye. But I've in other leagues and other drafts crapped all over picks that look exactly like this. And the one pick I did in FCM looks like might win the MVP of the NL this year. So it's a guy that can become a very good, very feared hitter. And it comes down to one of those things that we've talked about and time again. You can't let one vital that you don't like ruin a hitter. So it would be unfair to let his lack of an eye ruin him because he looks to be. I mean, he's a guy that you could almost play in relatively short order based on where his contact to power are. You wouldn't, but you almost could.
Yep.
Brett Washburn, next pitcher off the board, went 7 overall to the Mariners of Seattle. What do you think about Mr. Washburn?
Well, so I mean, as most people know, Seattle is who I was drafting for, along with the Mets. So I can
And well,
talk.
that explains this pick, then, doesn't it?
Yeah, so I'll explain why I drafted him. To be perfectly honest, if it was my own team that I was going to be running full time, I may have taken Vince Torr, which was the next pick, instead of Washburn. However, the reason I went with Washburn was his health is a little bit better, and we all know how health was the first season of this league. Yeah, I mean, Fred still doesn't have any injuries. That hopefully will change. And like once again, I'm just gonna say, control 10 over his overall, power 12 over, movement 8 over. Do I really care whether or not his command is right on par? Not really, because at the end of the day, he's throwing 94 to 96, and 45% of the balls he throws are ground balls. So it doesn't seem like he's going to get smashed for home runs all the time. That being said, I love most of the things about him, and his overall statistics seem pretty good.
Yeah, honestly, you're saying that if it had been you, you'd have taken Tor over him, and you can see why he's that much higher power, much higher on a few things. But I don't know. I think Washburn's the better pick. I mean, I think you definitely made the right choice for a team that you're not looking to hold on to. I think he's the better pick. I think his strikeout to walk ratio is good. It doesn't look like he's given up too many home runs. And he's a righty. Most people, for whatever reason, prefer righties over lefties. And he's only 17. So a right-handed 17-year-old power pitcher that will have a birthday before the end of the season, which could be interesting to see with all that upside. with a good fastball, good curveball, good two-seamer. He's got 3 pitches above his overall. I mean, you throw all that together into one guy, and you make the right pick here. You made a good choice. OBA was all under 200, well below. Like, no, you can't knock this pick. I think it was an excellent pick. I think whoever ends up with Seattle is going to be very happy to have this guy in the rotation for a good long while.
Yeah, and the first thing that when I get a Seattle GM and that I'm going to tell him is just because Blake Parker on Minnesota is his friend does not mean you should trade him to Minnesota.
Yeah, that's always a good call. If he wants to trade him to Boston, Boston does not mind. Boston will gladly take him. But yeah, don't trade him to Minnesota. I agree. All right. Well, the next pick is the guy that you have already said that you would have taken if, um, and that is Vince Torr, the left-handed 19-year-old pitcher. And again, I could see why. Good control, very good control. Commands slightly above the overall. Power is just massive. Movement's lacking. And I'm not entirely sure if in 18 if movement moves like it does in 14, or it just jumps past everything all the time, no matter what kind of pitcher it is almost. But again, here's a guy that's 3 pitches above his overall. I am slightly concerned that they're not much above his overall, and the fact that the game apparently has made him a closer already, which mogul being mogul. And the strikeout to walks are pretty damn good. Again, it doesn't appear to have a home run problem. I mean, I like the pick. Don't get me wrong. I like the other guy better. But I mean, this guy's a clear winner too.
Yeah, honestly, I just think that realistically, Tor has maybe more of your ace potential, and that's really kind of the reasoning in terms of that. Like Washburn is going to be very good. Maybe he's a number 2. Maybe he does turn into an ace, but for Tor, I think if obviously everything went well, I think he's got the make of an ace. His fastball's lower, not his highest pitch, so that's always a concern for me. But the fact that he has such high power, high control, and relatively high command, even if his movement only caps at like a 75 or 80, all those other things take into consideration. I think it's a little bit different than 2014, where movement is only based on like hits against, whereas I find that everything takes away from whip, which obviously we don't see until he actually plays. But that's kind of the way that I've seen. And like I said, to be perfectly honest, in the 2018 league that you and I are in, I've had zero luck drafting pitchers. So I could be entirely wrong, and Tor could be terrible. But there's
Are we
just a
talking about
lot
the
of
other league that's the 2017 league?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think I've drafted a good pitcher yet.
To be fair, I don't think I've drafted yet over there. I think I've traded my picks or just had them be autoed. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not a good person. All right. Anyway, yeah, no, I think you're right. I think Washburn definitely has that. I'm a great 2. I'm an amazing 3 at the very least build, where Tor has that flirting with ace. If not, I'll still be a solid mid rotation pitcher. So yeah, no, I would agree with that. Oh God! And next to Oakland went Corey Ledenspencer, something German. We'll go German. Another pitcher, 18-year-old, another left-hander, another guy with higher power, good control. Um, Here's the fastball that we want, and a good cutter. Um, Low home runs, solid walk strikeout ratio. Yeah, I mean, I like the pitcher again. 18's got some room to grow. Um, doesn't have a birthday until the off season, so no, I like it. I like the pitcher. I'll be interested to see where he goes again. Movement at overall, power control pretty far above, command just above. So it'll be very much like the last guy. I'll be interested to see kind of how he develops.
Yeah, I would definitely agree on that. The interesting thing as well, which I didn't really touch on, of the 3 pitchers, he is the one that has the lowest composure. Now, I'm not really sure how that works because uh, Barrios has the lowest of all the pitchers I've seen so far. But if composure actually has something to deal with how well they perform, it would be kind of interesting to see how it goes. because he does have, I think, a lot of the great levels. I mean, his control, he's not going to walk people, he's going to strike out people. Um, Maybe the control of how he throws his, cutter and chain should be good, but it's if his composure doesn't develop a ton and he does let up the long ball or all of a sudden movements, maybe that's where you start to see the higher ERA just based on clutch experiences.
Yeah, I'm not really haven't done too much research into composure and how that works. But yeah, I think it'll be something to kind of watch and see what happens. Again, he's a lefty. People don't like lefties for some reason. I don't know why. Um, but I mean, I think he's going to be a pretty good pitcher.
Yeah.
I like what I see.
No, same here. I definitely like, and you know what? I think if he was a righty, he might have gotten taken in one of those top 7 picks.
Right. Well, and that's the thing too. You take a lot of these pitchers, you make them right-handed, all of a sudden they're gone 10 picks before they were picked. Which again, personally, I think is a bit asinine. Um, but I know a lot of people disagree with me, and that's fine. They can do what they want. Next, we have another the end of our run of pitchers. No, we mean composure. If you go into the skills tab, Fred, go to mound presence. It's the last stat there. Will Vernon, 19-year-old pitcher, he went to Texas. I don't know. I don't know about this guy. I mean, 19, some things to like. He's got the power, but the command's below the overall. Movement's right about there. Control's over. I don't know. I'm just not something about this pick just doesn't make me warm and fuzzy inside. Maybe it's the 2-to-1 strikeout to walk ratio. Maybe it's I don't know. I just he's not jumping off the page at me like some of the other ones were. I'll just put it at that.
Yeah, I would agree. I think he kind of seems to be that high. Like, if you care about power and control, I think that part's once again fantastic. Um, it's unfortunate that right now he's short relief, so hopefully War Priest saw that.
Well,
But
just like the other guy we were talking about earlier, I think it was Torres currently their closer. So
yeah, I'm thinking here that this is kind of one of those, like, if you've seen Texas's farm, it is
I have not.
it is actually pretty ridiculous. When I was going through and making the file and stuff like that, they have a lot of random people that I didn't even know existed that are uh, like their top 3 guys in A ball are 94, 97, and 96 peak.
Jesus.
They have a 97 peak as their number 2 starter. Uh, like, there is a lot of good players that are almost guaranteed to do well. And so, like, I wonder if that's just kind of, I don't want to say he's the last good pitcher or anything, but he's that type of pitcher that if everything goes really well for him, he could become an ace because, his movement's still above his overall. So, say he finishes at like 88. If you get the movement in the mid 80s, commands like in the 70s, but your control and power are really high, he could turn into that really good, number 2, number 3, potentially higher, right? And so it's just kind of like a wish and a prayer that you kind of hope everything progresses. I don't think you're planning on anything anytime soon. I don't think he's the type of pitcher that will be great at 22. I think it's just you kind of are hoping that there is something better. And that being said, unfortunately, there might have been some other picks that were fairly decent later, but there must be something there that he saw.
Yeah, and I'll trust his judgment that he usually drafts relatively well. So, yeah, but you're right. I took a quick peek at his farm there, and Jesus. I mean, oy, that's not going to be safe for anybody in the AL anytime soon. So, yeah, you're right. You take the guy that might be a little bit more of a risk, but if you have that kind of farm, and kind of have a shot to do that. But when you have a top 10 pick, you try to go the safe, obvious route. There's very few people that are able to go way off script and strike it rich. So doesn't happen often, but doesn't mean it won't. So Felipe Urslo, 20-year-old center fielder, went to the Mets with the 11th pick. Switch hitting batter. Looks to be a pretty good fielder. Looks to have just a nice all around player. Looks to have contact, some gap power. His eye is a little bit of a concern, but not a lot. And looks to have pretty average to above average speed on the base path. So I like it. This looks like one of those guys you plug in center field, just let him do his thing. He's going to get on base a little bit. He's going to steal some bags. He's going to hit some surprising doubles. And potentially play Gold Glove rated defense. I like it.
Yeah, so like I said, I chose for the Mets as well, and the way I looked at it there is his contact is 14 points above. He's a switch hitter, so the fact that he is 57 overall and his righty contact is 73, I'm pretty good with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, his power kind of sucks, but once again, like we talked about with Hurst and Melaginas or whatever his name is, gap power is pretty good. And if some of those gaps turn into home runs, then that will be good. His eye is a little low, which was my concern. However, if his contact is high enough and maybe he just doesn't strike out as much as is what kind of, well, no, actually he struck out a fair amount, but if he doesn't strike out a lot and he gets a lot of that contact, his speed basically will carry him, and that's really where I went.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a good pick. And again, if you look at his amateur stats, he hit a surprising amount of home runs a couple of those seasons. A couple seasons at 7, 1 at 8, and then 1 at 12. I mean, that's surprising for somebody with a power of 59. So, or probably even less during some of those times. So, yeah, I think he'll have that sneaky power we talk about. Yeah, he's gonna hit the doubles that are just kind of obvious, but I think he'll hit a couple more home runs than people might expect. I think that'll carry him pretty far. So. All right, Josh Muller is the next one to go, or Mueller if you want. He goes to the Giants at pick 12. Another pitcher off the board. A little bit like the last pitcher we talked about. I feel like nothing that screams, "Wow, had to pick this guy." But again, there's that lefty that most people don't like. But you look at it, controls 10 above, powers well above, movements 8 above, pitches his fastball's above and his cutter's way above, and his circle change is at his overall. But fastball's not his dominant pitch. The cutter is. So, that's a pitch that I don't like seeing personally as my number one pitch. But that being said, I mean, his strikeout to walk ratio is high, very high, almost 4-1 a couple of those seasons. So, it'll be interesting to see how he develops. It'll be interesting to see as a lefty what he can do. Um, but again, he might be another one of those kind of boom or bust picks. Either he's going to be pretty darn good or he's going to be average, and you plug him in because you need somebody there.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if he had the vitals, or if he was a righty, he would probably be saying that he has ace mentality just based on that. I think it's one of those cases just to kind of see how the game progresses with lefties. I've noticed that lefties actually don't perform as poorly in 2018. Uh, but that being said, I still don't think you see anyone with like a ERA of 2 that is lefty, and that sometimes can make a world of difference. But overall, I really like the pick. I think that if the command struggles, the problem with San Francisco is that Bay. And if I'm not mistaken, the right field is where the Bay is. McCovey's Cove
Yes.
is
Yep.
definitely a big home run place.
Yeah, it's a bit far out there, and the wall's pretty high, but still, yeah. I mean, that's one of those things that's you need to build you almost need to rebuild a park to kind of fit lefty pitchers. Not that I've known anybody that's done that specifically for lefty pitchers, and then goes out of his way to trade for lefty pitchers. But it happens. So the next pick I actually like is one of the better pitchers out of the last couple taken. So I'm kind of surprised he didn't go early in this one. Teddy Giraldo went to Detroit. And again, people are going to like him better because he's right-handed. But I don't. For me, it's not that. For me, it's just the command is higher. Power still there. Big power, big fastball, big slider. Circle change isn't too bad. Um, I don't know. There's something about him that I like. Even though I am a little bit concerned about the strikeout to walk ratio, it's not as ideal as it should be for a big time power pitcher like he represents. Um, but I like him. I think he'll be again. I don't think he's going to run out and be an ace pitcher. I think he's going to be a very quality mid rotation arm.
Yeah, honestly, he's one of those players that his overall is already a little high, and his control and movement is kind of right on par. So you just kind of hope that he continues to progress because it's not like his command and power are significantly high. That being said, he won't give up a ton of home runs. So overall, he seems pretty good. Once again, I don't really know if that thing is actually a useful statistic, but his composure is a 90.
Damn, I didn't even see that. Wow. Yeah.
So,
So
it may not mean anything because as I was saying in the chat, like Fred has Walker Buehler with a 59 composure, and he's arguably one of the better pitchers in the league. But if it does mean something, that's a pretty significant amount.
yeah, I'm not. Yeah, like I have Chris Sale, and he only has a 77 composure. So actually, my best guy with composure looks like Eddie Griffin, who's an 86. And while he's pitched fine, I mean, well, this year he's probably my best pitcher, but yeah, it'll be, this will be one of those case studies we get to do, and now's the time to do it. So we have a guy that just got drafted, and he has a really high composure. Let's see what he does. I think the reason why I like him too is he seems a safer pitcher pick than the last 3 or 4.
Yeah.
So, all right, next pick of the draft, number 14, Paul Morrison goes to Milwaukee. A young right-handed right fielder, looks to have pretty good fielding, some gap power, solid eye. Uh, Other power doesn't look great, but he's hitting the home runs, so it's there. But that really low contact you don't like to see. I mean, he's a righty, so he should be smacking lefties pretty good. And his contact versus lefties is only one above his contact overall. So I don't know. I mean, that contact worries me. If it gets high enough, yeah, he's gonna smash home runs. But if it doesn't, like it's almost borderline busty.
It's interesting because that's usually the build I hate, the really low contact and high power. But there's just something about him that I really like. And, when I was doing the draft, I obviously was trying to get more draft picks for the Mets and in Seattle, but there's really nothing substantial that I could possibly trade because I don't want to
Well,
alter
there
the
was there was
franchise.
there was plenty you could have traded. You chose not to.
Okay, I wasn't going to alter the Mets by sending Syndergaard your way. You're right.
You should have, because then the Yankees wouldn't have won, and it would have been great.
Yeah, no, not going to happen. But Morrison is definitely someone that I did like. Ironically enough, very similar to the next guy that was taken, that I liked maybe more, but I don't know. It's that contact, and maybe that's just why I never really draft good hitters. Is I just never really know what the ratio is. That not every 90 contact player is good, but at the same time, not every 55 is garbage.
Yeah, and if you look at his stats for the last season, I mean, those are, again, amateur stats, but Jesus, those are some of the best amateur stats I've ever seen. Um, Rob Goggin is the next one, another right fielder, next pick to Colorado. What do you think about Rob?
Yeah, so you know what? I kind of had directions from six, so I kind of took Goggin for him. Pretty much because can you imagine like a 90, like 90 power, 90 gap power, and like 85 I in Coors Field? Like, what was it? Lucas Duda hit 50 home runs last year or something like that for Colorado. This guy is just going to crush it there. And his fielding's overall fairly good when you look at his overall statistics. So, for Colorado, it's definitely one of those cases where you want to have home field advantage throughout the playoffs, but he's got that bat.
Yeah, I don't like the contacts that low, and I don't think many of us do. But he's got that massive eye. He's got some deceptive speed. He's going to steal some bases. Like, he's going to steal a couple bases more than you think. He might be one of those kind of surprising 2020 type guys. But that big time power, I mean, he is, especially in that park, he is going to just bash the ball. He might not have the highest batting average, but who cares? I mean, if he hits you 220 and he hits you 40 to 50 home runs, you take it and you take it all the way to the bank. I think that eye is going to help him with his average a little bit more than some people think. So I like that pick almost a little bit more than the last guy. Right or wrong, I do. So now Atlanta with their first pick in the first round takes a catcher, Jay Congalton. Sure. Um, he's a guy that you look at and you go, okay. Switch hitter, 17, right there, big pluses. Preventing steals is a high thing for them, but throwing out runners is not. His arm ideal, but not terrible. Doesn't frame pitches too well, doesn't game manage too well, so a little bit curiosome. The rest of his defense looks good. His glove work's fantastic. I mean, maybe the idea with him is to move him out of catcher into somewhere else, even though, according to his report, he can't go anywhere else. Everywhere else would be just a shit place to put him. So I don't know. And the bat, um, it's weird. I always get weirded out when everything is almost exactly at the overall for the vital. Like, I don't see that much, so I don't really know how to read that. The stats look good. Stats look very good. Um, but I just don't know. It's just it's a new thing for me, so I don't really.
I honestly think that when Stan goes into the draft and he knows I'm going to talk about it, it's like he picks, hey, let's make it so Hokey absolutely just destroys my pick every time. Because that's what I feel like I do. Which makes me really sad because I liked Ray Donahue that he drafted in round 2. But there's nothing about this guy that would make me draft him. His eye is terrible. His power is just barely above. Like, you are hoping that he has the jump of jumps. Like, I hope you get the +3 overall winner ball and that he just goes crazy. Like, there's not a lot there that I could possibly say that's positive. Um, yeah, I don't really know. Like
Yeah,
you
again,
said,
if he was able to play anywhere else in the field, like the idea was, I'm going to convert him to third base and hope for the fucking best. Okay, I see that his defense is really good, but it's not there for whatever reason. It doesn't work there. So I just don't know.
yeah.
I really
You
don't
know
know.
what? I mean, maybe he goes to first base. Maybe, like you said, he's never going to throw runners. I don't know how he prevents steals. I don't understand how you can have 90 in preventing steals and then a 60 in throwing out runners and a 74 in game management. That just doesn't make a whole lot of sense for me. But maybe if he goes to first base, he
He will not do well at first base. Well, okay, so moguls obviously moguls. It's a little bit different. Did you happen to see how tall he is and
um
and how much he weighs?
okay, yeah, maybe not. I
He
don't know.
for those of you who are playing the home game, this dude stands 5'6" and 160 pounds.
Yeah.
Like, he's the size of a jockey for a horse race. Like, okay, obviously that's an overstatement by a good bit, but still, like, my lord, if I'm playing baseball and the catcher's 5'6" and soaking wet 164 pounds, I'm just gonna have a good old chuckle. Like, they'll probably strike me out every time because I'm just gonna be laughing at him so hard.
I'm amazed that he only has 75 speed at that. I totally didn't even see that. I don't know. There's just his
Again,
numbers. his numbers are pretty solid, but like it literally like he's got a 61 in decision making and a 63 in first and third. I mean, there there are a lot of things that make me sad, and Stang is going to be sad when he hears this because he knows I rag on every pick. Like
Yeah, but
it just hurts me on the inside.
at times it happens. Like it just has to happen. So
Yeah, you know what? At least the best thing going for him is Jay's got superstar written all over him, and we just have to give him time, and he will blossom.
yes, that's the way to look at it. All right, Tony Whipple is the next pick off the draft. Another left-handed pitcher. This one going to Pittsburgh, who, funnily enough, when I was trading my picks out of the draft, and I'm doing something over in FCM, and I see and Pittsburgh selects so and so. I jumped on and say, wait, I didn't have any picks, because for a moment I forgot which league was which, and I thought I was Pittsburgh in this league, and I'm clearly not. So. Um, Nobody cares, but that was a funny thing that almost happened. I quickly delete that message before everybody's like, "Wait, no, you don't. You didn't have a pick. What the hell are you talking about?" But Tony Whipple went to Pittsburgh, who I believe is Dan. Um, and interesting pick. An interesting pick. Controls over, power's way over, movement's over. Got a couple pitches, 3 pitches all over his his overall. I mean, out of some of the pitchers that have been taken recently, I like this one better than a bunch of them. Um, So I think he did well to find this guy and scoop him up while he could. His strikeout to walk ratio is pretty solid. Doesn't have, I mean, the one season he only gave up 1 home run the whole year. So I like it. I think this is one of those guys that has a chance to be a very good pitcher.
Yeah, honestly, he's one of those guys that at this late, if everything goes well, he could easily become a good 2 or 3. And even if he doesn't progress well and kind of just averages out, he's got a good way to be a 4 or 5. And sometimes that's all you're looking for in a draft is just to get that Major League Baseball player. The thing is, his command is low, which is fine. But his ground balls is 50%. So once again, he needs to be unmoggled and put as a starter. And
Man,
then one of the
all of
things I
them.
will get into is the strategies after, and something that was brought to my attention recently. But yeah, he definitely has the potential to be decent. I don't think he's going to be like a runaway talent. I think, him being a number 1 or number 2 is pretty far away, but I could be wrong. There's definitely a lot of things to like there. It's just honestly progression.
Yeah, I don't expect him to be a 1 or 2, but if he hit that status, it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
So, all right, Oakland picks again. The first team with 2 picks in the draft, I think, at my quick scan, and he takes first baseman Edard Chavez. Chavez. Um, I see. Here's the thing: the stats or the vitals all say yes. Good eye, amazing gap power, solid contact. Then you flip over the vitals, and he looks to be more of a doubles than a home run hitter. And so that's a bit of a concern. And again, he's a righty, so how well is he going to hit um, versus lefties? I mean, it looks like his hit and runs a 97. I mean, good lord. He looks like he might be solid enough to actually stick at first base. Just the question is how he will actually go, how well he'll actually do. It looks like he did drop down at some point. I'm not sure if that happened this year or in between seasons, however that works for pre-amateur stuff. But it'll be interesting to see how he develops. I think he's a guy that could be a good hitter, but at the same time, his stats just don't say I am going to be a good hitter.
See, and this is where I would get into that weird trouble where I actually like him a little bit more than Matthew Howard. Now, once again, Matthew Howard had, the high contact power, but I always
Yeah,
find like just the eye, one is below his overall, the other is 10 points above. Maybe it doesn't mean as much because his hit and run is 97. Maybe his eye is actually atrocious. And maybe the hit and run has some effect on that. I don't know. But there's some things here that I do like. Like you said, he's maybe not going to be a home run hitter, especially in Oakland, because Oakland's got the bigger field, right?
Yeah.
It's more of a pitcher's park, if I'm not mistaken. But it should be kind of interesting to see what happens there. Then again, you never know. Maybe Ren's just kind of hoping for a nice little bump so he can flip him for something else.
And at this point of the draft, that's never a bad idea. If you don't like a lot that you see, you pick up talent that you know other people are gonna like, or you could turn into good trade bait to get something you actually need. So it's not a bad strategy to have at this point. But yeah, he's a guy that, again, he could be a very good hitter. I mean, maybe his stats are not quite how they turn out, but again, look, he's walking more than he's striking out by a solid amount. So it'll be interesting to see how he plays out. If he just becomes super trade bait to somebody that needs that power, something like Colorado could use a bat like that in their lineup and just not even think twice about it. Or if he develops into something even better. So we'll have to wait and see. Mark Belota goes next. Right fielder goes out to the desert of Arizona. Another one of those guys that looks a lot like that first baseman we just briefly mentioned again from earlier, Howard. This guy has a low eye, but all the rest of his stats are quite high. Looks to be more of a gap hitter, more of a doubles than a home run guy. The average is really high. And the stats for defense are quite good as well. So I'd be very interested to see where he goes. I'm not sure if he stays in right field or if left field is a far better fit for him. Um, but I like it. I like the bat. Again, the eye is a little bit low. I don't like that. Against lefties, it's at his overall. Against righties, it's 7 below, which is not ideal. So he might end up more of a situational type player than one might think. But I don't know. I like it better than a couple of the bats we've seen recently.
Yeah, you know what? Once again, the only negative I see on him is the 64i, but he kind of has the fake speed in the sense that he's not going to steal a lot, but he's at least got the first to third. So when he gets on base, he's going to move around the bases. So that's at least the positive. Once again, his eye kind of seems a little off, especially if hit and run affects eye, because with 96 and to only be 64, that's not great. The curiosity that I have is how he fits in Arizona. So I don't even know if this makes sense, but Arizona's stadium effects for left-handed batters is 148. For right-handed batters, it's 70. Literally half. So my question is that just going to help his gap power, where he's going to turn, when he's in Arizona, just less home runs? Because that seems like a really weird mix, and I don't know. I know Chase Field enough from like MLB The Show, but I don't watch Arizona play, so I don't really know what that park looks like. But that's a weird number, and when he is supposed to be a power hitter, it just kind of makes me feel like some of those potential home runs going to right field are just going to die and end up being caught.
Yeah, I think you might be right on that. Or again, since the gap power is so high as well, they might just be gap shots out there. He might just split the defenders and go. And the fake speed doesn't bother me. Like, I saw the speed, I didn't even care about it, because honestly, what I think that does for him, being the good defender that he is it makes his range even that much better in the outfield. So I mean, I think he's one of those guys. If you put in left field, he might end up looking like Starling Marte did in left field, where he's just going to be halfway through center and catching balls because he can. So I think that's that 89 speed and that 93 range kind of does for him, is it just gives him the ability to kind of be all over the place to get the ball. But yeah, as far as the bat goes, yeah, I don't think the home runs are going to be that great in certain situations, but I think that just translates then into double power. And so I think he ends up being a very solid bat. But again, he's another one of those guys that if he's not going to fit in your park, trade him. Trade him somebody's park he does fit in, and just reap as many rewards as you possibly can.
Yeah. He
All right.
somehow has a career grand slam, though. Don't know how that's a thing in his vitals. Then again, it also shows that he last 5 games were September 26th to October 1st. So a little bit of a weird glitch in that.
Oh yeah, look, he played against me last year.
Yeah.
How the hell? I mean, I held him hitless because I'm awesome like that, but weird. Well, that's just part of the thing that with Mogul recycling players, I wouldn't be surprised if some of the players that got recycled, their cards get kicked back in. It should clear them, but it doesn't always.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's blame Clay. That's what I always do. All right, Vic Woodrow goes 20 overall to the Blue Jays. This is a guy that is a third baseman with one of those bats that looks to be more contact than actual power, though the gap power is there. Um, but on the stats, I mean, he's hit a fair amount of home runs. He's a double digits the last 2 years. So, um, eh, I don't know how to feel about this guy. His defense doesn't look ideal, so I don't think third base necessarily is going to be where he stays. I mean, he could, but that low throwing accuracy makes me not want to leave him somewhere where he has to throw a lot. So I might prefer to transition him to first base, um, but I think the bat's gonna be pretty good.
Yeah, he's kind of got that third base build I like. I mean, uh, high
Yeah, so
contact, medium power, more against lefties, but still his gap power is pretty good for being 58 overall. And same with his eye. His eye is kind of right even. That being said, for someone that we roasted last year about how maybe defense might be important, and Manny wanted us to talk about defense on this pod. His defense is terrible at third base. In the sense that he can't throw. He probably throws as well as Josh Donaldson with dead arm, and that did not go well for the Blue Jays last year. So, in real life, yeah, I still don't understand why his fielding is a 70 and his glove work is an 82, but his percentages in fielding were pretty terrible. 943, 8 errors in 50 games. There's some things there that definitely make it that first base might be a good choice, especially because Vladdy Jr. is probably going to be their third baseman long time.
yeah, that's the thing. Like the defense, just it says because I played with it a little bit. It says his defense is definitely third base is his best fit. I don't see it. I think he ends up more of a first baseman or even maybe a DH when all is said and done.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that if the bat progresses, but we'll see. We will see. All right, next back to a pitcher. Philip Whalen goes to Houston, young right-handed pitcher. Um, has that power we like to see, and then it has everything else right around his overall, which I don't like to see. So his control is 1 over, his command's at, his movement is 4 over. Got a good fastball, good. Got a circle change that's a little bit lower than I care to see. Um, I just again, I think it's you get to the point of the draft, and if you need a pitcher, and again, you really shouldn't draft based on need. You should basically draft on what's available on the big board. Um, I don't know. He's kind of all their vitals all look good. In the amateurs, that's the one thing about I think 18 is that all of them look the vitals. You look at them, and you're like, oh, damn, that's pretty good. But they can't all be good. So I'm concerned about like you look at his ERA versus his dice. His dice is a fair amount higher. Give up 11 home runs his first year in college. Maybe that's a blip in the radar. Maybe it's nothing. Um, I don't know. I'm not overly high on this pick.
Well, good news is because I actually don't know whether we have a Washington GM or not because he just kind of like dipped. I also drafted for Washington. It was a really fun draft. I got to choose the same.
Everybody.
Yeah, pretty much. I felt like I was drafting. So I'll go and say there are many things that I agree with you on that statement. Having the one control over and the one command over. on the end, you know what? He only has 2 pitches. So that did kind of freak me out a little bit. I took him because I thought by far he is the one pitcher in this draft that could potentially, uh, of who is left, that could be an ace. That's kind of how I look at it. And to be fair, I half helped Cleveland also in picks because he literally took the team about an hour before draft. It was rough, but his power at 83. I mean, you know me. That's the type of pitcher I like. His movement is
Sure.
fairly high. His command should relatively even out, I think. I could be wrong. And once again, that command isn't terrible, especially if he does that 40% ground ball. Maybe he does give up a few too many home runs, but if he gets his power and movement really high, the way I kind of took it was maybe they're solo home runs. And I think from an ace, you're okay giving up solo home runs. What you really don't want are those 2 or 3 run shots.
Yeah, and you might be right. I don't know. Something about it that just doesn't sit right with me. Percy, I see you said you liked him too. Again, I could see where people like him. It makes sense. Um, just something about it for me just doesn't quite click. I don't know. I think part of it is he's 20 and he's about to turn 21. He turns 21 this season, so I think that's going to be very telling to kind of see how that drop happens. If it's a small drop, maybe I start to like him a little bit more. But if it's a sizable drop, then I just basically say I'm right and then just sit back and watch. So
Yeah. No, no, I definitely agree with that. I mean, it's one of those things where it's really hard to kind of tell. I was trying to look up a decent pitcher that's been giving up a lot of home runs, but in all honesty, they all have terrible ERAs if they've given up home runs. So that's not really a positive thing.
yeah, well, again, it's one of those things. Kind of, it is what it is. 21st pick overall, Houston takes Dave Pashanik. He is a left fielder, is 20 years old. And let's see here with all of his stats and stuff. So here's the kind of power hitter that I prefer to have. His contact is above that 50 mark, which is something you I don't want to see. I don't want to see 50. I want to see as high as possible. 62 is not as high as possible, but it's better than 50, and it's not too far off. It's higher versus lefties, not too far off versus righties. Big power, big eye. If I want a power hitter, I want big power, I want big eye, and the higher contact, the better. So I like him for that. As far as the fielding goes, he looks like he might be a solid left fielder. That's a bonus. Now, when you go and you actually look at his stats, how do the stats look? He's hitting home runs. You want to see that of a power hitter. He's also hitting even more doubles some years, so that can be a bit of concern whether he's going to be more of a double guy or more of a home run guy. But that OPS is just through the roof. Walking a fair amount, striking out more, but again, as a power hitter, you don't mind seeing that. So all in all, I like it. I think this is one of the better power bats we've seen.
What if I told you it was an auto?
Then I would say Mazel Tov to Houston.
Yeah. Honestly, it was one of those cases where, uh, I'm Canadian. I didn't realize that apparently it was Memorial Day weekend because our long weekend was the weekend before, and I generally don't think of the United States right away. So
Because
Eric,
it's not like 90% of your leagues from.
it's actually true. I totally can understand that. The great part is no one mentioned it ahead of time, because like I would have totally been down to do it the Monday if people had mentioned it. I couldn't do it the Sunday. People were like, "Oh, it's Memorial Day." I was like, "Fantastic!" Might have been good to tell me. I don't know, 2 weeks before. Or even a week before, because as Fred was yelling at me constantly to update the schedule. But overall, I kind of like what is there. To be honest, once again, the contact is maybe something that I'm not a huge fan of, and that's just my my own niche. But his health is really the only thing that's bad. And from the looks of it, it looks like he can field shortstop as well. Not that I would ever suggest that he goes there, but he's
Please
got
no.
good glove work.
Yeah, I no, I like him. I mean, this is one of those autos GB probably wishes he had gotten last year in the FCM draft because I mean it's an auto that you're okay with. So for an auto pick, A+. All right, and now we're moving on. Douglas Strother, another young pitcher. And again, so you look at this guy, just at first blush, you're looking at him. He's 63 overall, 76 control, 61 command, sure, 72 power, 71 movements. Most of his major vitals are over his overall. His fastball and circle change are way over his overall, and his curve is just one below. How is this guy not taken before? How is this guy not taking a couple picks going? Some of these other pitchers that are a little more questionable are going. Is it the fact that they have a little more? I don't want to even say upside, but a little more potential pizzazz, or is this just a guy that's just too safe to pick in the top 20? I'm not sure, but I mean he's 18. You have an 18-year-old who looks pretty darn good. Strikeout to walk ratio is for the most part, minus that last season, quite good. Isn't giving up too many home runs. More of a kind of that Jekyll and Hyde home run, to be honest. Every other year is higher than it should be. Um, I like him. I like him quite a bit. I'm surprised that he didn't go before, especially based on where some of these other guys went.
Yeah, honestly, once again, as I said, I kind of chose for Cleveland because I had just gotten him ahead of time. Brew Crew actually said no like 3 times, and if you guys all know me, I will continue to ask until you say yes, essentially. And I feel like last year when we talked on the podcast and I mentioned that command was tied into home runs, everyone's like, ooh, the command's below the overall. Like, let's not draft. And that's kind of what I feel like the fallout was. That being said, there's a lot of things that I do like him as. I think it was Percy that just said the four drop. It's one of those things where hopefully um, it doesn't have that type of effect, but we can always hope and kind of see what happens there.
Yeah, 4 point drops are not ideal, but I'll take a 3 or 4 point drop over a 10 point drop or a 6 point drop. So yeah, you want to see the one or two. Those don't happen that often. Those are rare. So the 3 to 4 points are more common. So if he had a 4 point this year, more than likely he'll have a 3 point next year, and you feel even better about it at that point.
Yeah.
So no, I like this pitcher. 4 point drop aside, I think it's a good. And again, you've seen the drop. So if he's already dropped, there's a good chance he might jump between now and the off season. So you might even like this guy even more by that point. Tony Williams, second baseman, 17 years old, is the next pick in the draft. Goes to Atlanta, and the pick that they got from Boston for a nice little pitcher. Um, so should you go ahead and just bash this pick first, and then let me try to make him feel better afterwards, or how do
You know, because Stan gave me his draft list, I actually do like this guy's arm and range, and his speed is actually relatively average. He may not run a lot. Once again, it's honestly only the arm strength, so I think he's going to be a good enough second baseman. But yeah, I think fielding wise, he's going to be good. It's just whether he becomes, uh, a oh boy, Ryan Goins type of player that, bald headed and can only field, or whether he actually does get the bat on the ball, and we'll see.
Yeah, I
But
like the
to be
def
fair, I
I like the
don't
def
hate the pick. I don't hate the pick. I just think the second baseman he took in the second round's better.
well, and that does happen sometimes. You're right. I think he's got that solid speed. He's got good glove. The arm's trash, but the accuracy's good. Strength's not there, but the accuracy's good. So from second baseman, done. Take it. 96 hit and run. I like it. As far as the hitting goes, oof, there's not a lot. No, I'm not going to just say it, Percy. Percy's telling me to just say I hate the pick. I don't hate the pick. I like the pick for what it can be, not what it is. Again, all the vitals hitting wise are just not ideal. The stats are fine, um, but I don't know. That's the thing. If the hitting can progress, since he's so young and he has the chance to do so, you might have a pretty good second baseman on your hands. If not, again, maybe there was a guy you could have taken later that would have been better. So, and again, Bogey's pretty sure that there's a guy in the second round he took that was better. So we'll see when we get to that part of the draft. The Angels pick next, taking Pat Rayfield, first relief pitcher off the board. And he actually stayed a relief pitcher. I am shocked that Mogul didn't turn him a starter like he turned every other starter pick so far into relief pitchers. But this is a guy that looks to be your typical relief pitcher. Good control, some power, really good movement, um, good fastball change combination. Ground ball rate's a little bit lower or maybe not, depending on what kind of closer you like. But I like it. I think it's a good, solid pick, especially this part of the draft. Why not take the relief pitcher?
Yeah, honestly, I like the pitcher. I think that he has all the potential that realistically everything is almost 10 spots above his overall. He could easily be a major ace because the one thing I can or not ace closer. The one thing that really doesn't matter from what I see in closers is command. I mean, it matters probably a little bit to an extent how it goes, but if that's your lowest stat and everything else is just amazing, I think you have the potential to be a very good closer or setup. I don't think if his command is low, the last thing you want is for him to be like a middle reliever because I think that's when you start to run into issues where you let up a 2-run bomb and all of a sudden instead of being up 4-2, you're tied or whatever. And once again, I'm probably overthinking it, but that's kind of the way that I like to always build my pen is if I have someone that has very good vitals that are closing, but maybe still goes up the long ball.
Yeah, I think that I don't have a problem with this pick. I like it. I think he could be a closer, but yeah, the slightly higher endurance hopefully will come down a little bit because for me, I want my endurance, 22, 24, preferably lower for my closers. So if that doesn't come down a lot, how Mogul's going to use him based on how they use the other players. But all in all, I like the pick. After this, we go across the bay to LA again for the Dodgers. Took another second baseman, Chris Nauman. Um, what are your thoughts on Nauman, especially compared to some of the other second basemen we've seen so far?
Um, Pretty much the same as the last words I said was staying. His speed and defense look okay, and he just happens to have a little bit better gap and eye.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, I got nothing more than that. Almost carbon copy of the last one. Speed's much better. He's going to steal a bunch of bases. I think that's what makes him um, better, maybe. And again, maybe speed's only an 80, and the frequency, success rate. I mean, all that's high. So we'll see. It'll be interesting to see how that decision making and all that other stuff versus the actual speed plays out. But the bat is average. Defense good, speed good, bat average. 17. He's also a lefty, which plays in his favor a little bit for the bat. We'll see. I mean, this would be a kind of I want to keep an eye on, see kind of how he develops um, moving forward. The Cubs have the next picks with Joe Jeremy. Never trust a man with two first names. So I'm not sure how much I'm going to like this pick, but it's another relief pitcher. This one has that 41 endurance that I do not like to see. Got the big power, which I like. Movement is lower. Control and command are just above. So I'm worried about A, where he's going to be pitching due to Mogul being Mogul, and B, his effectiveness. I'm not hating on the pick, um, but there are a number of concerns that I do have with his stuff.
Yeah, I think he's one of those people that maybe you consider making him a starter and kind of see how that goes. It was another one of those cases where it was kind of an auto in that regard. Uh, just because Jason messaged me a little bit later. But I think the nice thing is if you put him down to closer, once again, he has everything that I just kind of talked about, except for his movement's a little bit lighter, and whereas his command is higher, so he doesn't give up the hits. But I really think he's kind of one of those two-way things. Someone that throws 96 to 98, you either kind of have him as a top, 1 or 2 starter, or he's your closer. There's not a whole lot of in between, because if he doesn't really hit, or like if he doesn't necessarily progress well enough for him to be a useful tool in those positions, he probably is going to be more like a long relief, a guy that you just need to eat innings if that's the way he goes.
Right, and you hate to draft those in the first round, regardless of how late in the first round it is. So, if the idea is to make him a starter, then yeah, take a shot because I think he could be a solid starter. I very much worry where he ends up as a reliever. So, especially with those pitches that he has, if the goal, if the idea is, you know what, starter, I'm going to stretch him out. He's going to be a starter. Do it. I think that you're going to get a lot more value out of him, not from a trade perspective, just from a player usage perspective. Trying to stretch him out to a starter, and then you do try to shrink him down to a closer.
Yep.
But again, 2 first names, don't trust him. Another one you can't trust with 2 first names is big next. Trevor Neal goes next to the Minnesota Twins, 17-year-old left-handed pitcher. I don't know. Good fastball, solid sinker, okay slider, power, control, command, and movement are all right at his overall. So, ugh, I don't know. I'm not a big fan. Even at
Yeah.
17, even with all the room to grow, just not. Everything's too close for me. I don't like it.
So when I made this selection for Andy, the next words out of my typing were, "I did not auto this," because like if you obviously Andy sees stuff that we do not, but
And
this is one of those
wouldn't it be
cases.
nice if he just shared? I mean, just a little bit.
Yeah, maybe he can tell us after what made him decide he wanted this guy. But I was kind of so surprised at that there was that, because he's a lefty. His command and movement are right on his overall. His control is barely above. There's a lot of things there that don't. Now, once again, let's go back to the thing that we don't know about: his composure. 85. His ground ball percentage 50. So, I mean, those are some very good numbers. It's just going to be whether or not he turns out to be good. And I wouldn't. I really don't think he was the best pitcher left, but we could be wrong on that.
I usually am. It is what it is. So, Philadelphia, with the 29th pick overall in the draft, takes Brian Shelton, um, a you can't see my air quotes, but third baseman, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, not a third baseman, more of a first baseman, if not DH type of guy. Um, I don't know the bat, like the eye. Yes, please, God, give me an 85 eye for a 20-year-old any day of the week. I'll take it. Um, but outside of that, like he's got a bit of gap power. He doesn't seem to have any other power, and his contact seems to be blasé. Like, ooh, I I don't know. I mean, if you look at his amateur stats, his last year was phenomenal, and he had a couple of years before that that were quite good. Um, but I don't know. Is he that guy that second year in college hit 12 doubles and 13 home runs and almost a 1200 OSP or OPS? Or is he the guy that had in the year before had 8 doubles, 5 home runs, and a 775 OPS? I don't know. I really don't know. I'm going to tend to lean toward the latter and not the former. But he's got some time to kind of fill out those shoes per se, and try to do something, especially since he's already kind of had his birthday this year, which is one less thing to be concerned about.
Yeah, you know what? I think he can pretty much only play first base. Uh, I don't think I would trust him unless his fielding goes up quite a bit for third base. The advantage is, yeah, his contact and power may never be um, super high above his overall, but they're also very close. Like, the interesting thing is his contact versus righties is better than his contact versus lefties, and he's a right-handed pitcher or a right-handed batter. His power is still better against lefties, but it's interesting how the contact is a little bit better on the righties, and it will be very interesting to see how it progresses all the way through. If it stays one different, which generally it will, I don't think I've ever seen it change dramatically, but I think he's one of those cases where he can be a really good hitter. I just don't know if you really want to put him as your first baseman. Um, you definitely don't want to put him in third base, I don't think, but he's got some potential there. Maybe DH. And this late in the first, I mean, he is one of the better bats. There's not a ton that I necessarily see that, really shows me.
Yeah, and you very well might be right on that. I I don't know. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan. Um, all right, last pick of the round, Santos Soldado. Not even close. Don't care. Right-handed starting pitcher. Um, again, just like everybody else we've talked about the draft, big power guy, movement 10 over, command 3 over, control 1 under, got a good fastball, got a good slider, got solid circle change. Strikeout to walk looks to be his walks look high. Let's just start there. His walks look higher than they should be most of those seasons, so that is a concern. Um, home runs seem high for a righty. That's a big concern. So I don't know. I think this guy's gonna be has more of a chance as a bust than he does anything else.
Yeah. Um, Honestly, it was just kind of one of those direction picks. It was top pitcher in this round and then top hitter in the next. I don't think there's much to really love there. It should be kind of interesting. I really don't think he's going to stand out, but the fastball at 77 when he's 59 overall, the power at 76 and movement at 69, he could be very good. It just might be that his control is a little bit lower, and it really will just depend whether he can get walks down.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously he's got some time. We can kind of almost wait and see a little bit what's going to happen. Just from my perspective, from my point of view, he's not a guy I'd want to trade around.
Yeah. I'd kind of wait for that first big jump that he has, where maybe his peak goes up to like 94 or 95, and then that's when you kind of are like, hey, you should get this guy, and I'll build for now.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's this late in the round, like I talked about earlier. If you can get a guy that's good trade bait, you do it. Um, he's not, and I'm not sure if he's even gonna be good anything. So, but again, I've been wrong in the past. It does happen on occasion, so we'll kind of see. Now, second and third rounds, we're gonna talk about our one pick I really like. Try to find him real quick. In the second round, here he is. Um, so one of the kind of almost the sleeper pick, if you want to call that. So I have one. I don't know how many you have.
Um, I would probably say there's one that kind of sticks out in the second round that I really liked,
Was that the
outside of the
second?
ones that I picked. Sorry, did you say third or later?
No, so I found one in the second that I was a big fan of, and that is Miguel Garcia, the left-handed right fielder that went to Oakland, I believe.
Yeah,
I was a big fan of his.
yeah. No, he's definitely a good player in terms of that. I actually like him a decent amount. I was going in the second round. I'll do one in the second round and one in the third because I think there is someone in the third that's very deserving and makes me wonder why they chose what they did in the first. But Eric Ogletree, the center fielder for I think it was San Francisco, the 17th pick.
Yes.
So obviously, I had the Mets, the pick before. I went Williamson over Ogletree, but I really wanted Ogletree. I just think that Ogletree is kind of one of those scary boomer busts. If he doesn't jump right away, being that he's already 22, you have that area where maybe he struggles a little bit, but he also doesn't steal a ton of bases, but his success is great. So it's not even like it's the fake speed. Overall, he seems like he'll be a pretty decent tool.
Yeah, I like Ogletree. I think he has the real speed, not the fake real speed, which is just something so annoying in this version of the game. I do like the speed. I like the bat, but yeah, 22, not a lot of room to grow. Like you need to do it if you're gonna do something, you need to do fast. He's already had his birthday this year, so he turned 22, so that's fine. But he does turn 23 before next off season, so um doesn't. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure if he actually jumped or not this year already. If he did, um, you're concerned. And again, at 59 overall at 22, oof, pass. Even with all the other stuff that I do like about it, just that's too much of a hurdle for me to overcome.
Yeah. In the third round, and that's pretty much, I think after the fourth and fifth, there wasn't really a whole lot. But the third round, the player that I really liked is Kevin Bridgewater. Um, and now this one's by Andy. And when he went, a lot of people were sad to see him go at that spot. I think there were a lot of teams that still had picks that were kind of waiting on taking him. But I think he's going to be a very good player. He might be a little bit better than his probably brother, Teddy Bridgewater.
Really, we're gonna do the football thing.
We are. I did that in the draft, and I got compliments. So you can compliment this Canadian.
I won't. I mean, maybe I should, but I'll pass. Um, So Bridgewater, yeah, let's give him the good once over. Yeah, command and power, sure. Yeah, I'll take the command and power of that high over the overall. The movement and control both being under is a bit of a concern. Um, but the vitals look good. I mean, and the stats look good. So, and he's got that 50% ground ball rate, the high ground ball rate, throws 97, 98. Yeah, at 18, yeah, I mean, this might be better than some of those picks we talked about in the first round, sure. So
It's
I am
better than his first round draft pick.
well, and that which brings to your point, kind of confused with why he waited so long. I think people, especially in newer leagues, I feel like people get way too bent out of shape about overalls and peaks and all that stuff, and so they see a guy that's a 57, 85, they're like, yeah, I'll wait for him in the third or fourth round. If he's a good pitcher, take him in the first or second. Like, people are going to say you overreached, but if he ends up being what you think he's going to be, then you didn't.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. There are a lot of things that I liked about him, and I just happened to miss him because honestly, I did not have the time to scout 4 complete draft lists. I just kind of went through as I was picking for teams. But he is definitely someone that you know probably could have been a better draft pick than some of the first round, and definitely better than some of the second.
I agree. I agree. All right. Well, that wraps up the draft portion of the podcast. What else do we have on the docket for this evening?
Well, I'll one of the things I will talk about that was brought to my attention was either by Brew Crew or Y Guy. So, for any of you that have a starting pitcher that was drafted that was for whatever reason put as a closer, there is something important to look at that I may have to do manually. So I need to see if I can find one. Found one because I saw what Percy said earlier. So when you look at Malcolm Verizon, he's
Okay.
80 endurance. He must have, after the draft, he must have been a closer or something like that because he's got like 99 to 101 fastball. Anyways, if you click on his strategies, his pitch count limit is 60 pitches. So he is your starting pitcher that is not expected to do more than 60 pitches. So there are some closing pitchers that have 100 because they were first put as like middle relief or long relief or whatever. So I don't think that is something that updates when you upload your file, because I did have to change quite a few of those.
Interesting.
Yeah. So apparently, which I didn't realize, that was a thing in 2014 in FCM. There is a strategy where you could change the pitching, except everyone is clicked off. So, like, if you click it off, it ignores it, which would be fine and dandy. However, I would rather not have to go through like 30 pitchers per team and shut those off. So, if you notice someone that has terrible pitch limit, I will 100% fix it for you. You just need to tell me.
All right, you heard it here first, folks. If you notice something wrong on your team, tell a commission, he'll fix it. All right, commission, I noticed something wrong on my team that I'm fixing here live on chat. Toronto and New York are way too close to me in the standings. So if you could just do me a little favor and fix that, I'd greatly appreciate it.
Well, you know, as Manny said, he's going to put Vladdy Guerrero in like AAA or something like that. So you don't even have to do it. I don't have to do anything. He's going to do it all himself.
And that would be nice if he actually does it.
Yeah. In terms of New York, I mean, that's just a beast of a team. They have actually decided to make money this year, so they're not going to go into debt.
Well, that pisses me off. Of course, I'm making money this year. Nope, 2.5 million. Son of a bitch.
Well, that's your projected profit, but at least you have 17 mil.
Yeah, well, that's because I got some from Stang when I traded him my picks.
Yeah.
He's gonna make 46 million. What the fuck?
You know, his payroll is only 30 mil ahead of you.
God damn it!
Yeah.
Is it all right? Well, I'm gonna look at my tickets because apparently I did something wrong.
It's actually very possible.
Nope, it's not. It's not that. Son of a bitch. All right, well, it doesn't matter.
It might be because he's getting 47,000 people and you only have 33 on average.
Well, Fenway's not a big park, so.
Really? Well, I mean, I know that, but it's got to have. Oh no, never mind. It's only got 37,000. Okay. Honestly, got nothing.
Yeah, well, me neither, unless I magically find money in the couch cushions to build more thing. Wow. Oh yeah, no, that makes sense too.
Oh,
Yeah.
come on. We all know you're gonna rebuild at some point. I'm surprised Chris Sale's still in a Boston uniform.
Let's be fair. He's one of my expiring contracts this year, so.
Yeah, I don't think you could let him go.
No, I can't. I was thinking about this earlier, and I was like, you know what?
Uh, maybe I take that back.
I was thinking, well, yeah, so you seen what he asking for?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did before the podcast. I actually accidentally clicked on something that showed me all my expiring contracts and what they're expecting to make. Oh, for those of you who don't know, at least in this, I don't think that you could do this in 14. Let me double check real quick. But if you click on the expiring contracts tab, it brings up in a separate. Yeah, you can't do it in 14, but you could do it here in 18. If you just click on the thing that says expiring contracts and like you bottom next to your top stories, it brings up a separate uh, thing that has all your players and what they're asking right now to make going into either RB or free agents.
Yeah, I mean, you got a pretty good deal on Folt. Oh, and wow, that's wrong. I was gonna say Folty. It said he was only seeking like 11 mil, but when I clicked on it,
Nope.
it said 20.
No, it's 19 over 5 is what he's seeking.
Oh, okay,
My
yeah,
third starter wants 9.5 over 4. Yeah. So this might be my last run before I have to make some tough decisions.
yeah. But I mean, at least Mookie Betts is performing well after breaking his neck last year.
Ugh, yeah, thanks for reminding me.
Yeah, no problem. I had to.
You didn't, but thank you anyway. But yeah, it's gonna be relying on the young starting next year because I have 3 of them that hopefully will be ready to go, and I might have to rely on them pretty heavily. So I might
Yeah,
have to turn over
I
my rotation.
I definitely think free agency is going to be fun because I just looked at Xander too.
Yeah,
And
yes, thank you. I'm aware of how much my guys are making and how much they want to make. Where's
Man,
Xander? No, Xander wants to make what he's making. It's not too big a deal.
no, he doesn't. Not when you click it.
Oh, God damn it, really?
Yeah,
Oh, that dirty fucking whore.
yeah, he wants double.
Oh, what a bitch.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
you heard it here first, guys. If you need potential talent, clear your space for free agency this year because it
Yeah.
is going to be hot.
Yeah, look at all those comp picks. Hooray. Ugh. Yeah. Well, we'll see. Boston's going to have to do some things. You know what I'll do? I'll just pull a page out of Canadian Mike's playbook, and I'll just sell picks for cash. It's actually more Eric's playbook, but nevertheless.
Well, and Eric does it well. He does the second round for like 30 mil, and then he keeps his first.
Yeah, he does the one. He does the one shot. Here's a good pick. Give me a bunch of money for it. No, he does it the right way. I always try to do it the cheap way, where I sell my 4 through 6 for 20 and just get by.
Yeah. I mean, it's true. Since he does have a lot of budget out of the wazoo, as you would say, they also could potentially not win 24 more games and be tanking. So yeah, that would suck to lose all 100 mil.
Wah wah wah.
No, I think Percy's got it this year. I don't think the nice thing is I don't think anyone's really in a position where they are in tank category. I would say the two teams that seem to be the ones that might have the biggest issue is just based on division, which is Baltimore, because Boston, Toronto, and New York are probably all making the playoffs, unless Texas squeezes in because they have a very good record. But that NL Central with Chicago, St. Louis, and Pittsburgh, although Pittsburgh's doing poor, that's going to be a rough one to continue winning.
Yeah, it's kind of fun looking at kind of across the divisions to see where everybody's kind of measuring out. And I think you're right. I think the AL East is just kind of above and beyond everybody, really. So, yeah, NL East isn't too bad, but
Yeah, I really don't know what happened with Washington. I tried to make them so that they'd be decent this year, and without doing a whole lot. And boy, they suck. But they also have 47 in projected profit, so that's pretty good for them. And looks like Scherzer died.
well, yeah, ugh, rough.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's rough. Oh man, 30 million for a couple more years too. Yikes. Well, when you have that much money to spend, you have the money to spend. So, yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see kind of how the season plays out. Got a couple good races going on. Um, some teams are gonna be sad at the end of the year. They're gonna have really good records and just miss out.
yeah. It. I'm really curious right now. It's interesting that both years, the people that are leading home runs are players that you weren't expecting. So this year it's Pedro Alvarez with 22 home runs. And last year it was obviously Lucas Duda with 51.
Well, and those are guys that in real life had home run potential, quite realized it. As a Pirates fan, I suffered through many years of Pedro Alvarez's highs and mostly lows. So, yeah, I was curious. I was interested, pleased to see that I had the one of the higher AL. Since I really didn't consider my team a home run team, and I think it's just they're spread thin. Like I have 5 guys currently that have 10 or more, and
Yeah,
two guys right behind him with 8. So it's interesting when you look kind of across the teams how people doing, and then Toronto's right there nipping at my heels, and they've only had 61.
yeah.
So
I definitely like how this file's kind of evened out with home runs. It's kind of nice to see the high home run, but even with the high home run, you're getting a lot of still good pitching, right? Like you got the Jarrett Cole with a 2.33, and everything really kind of evens out. It's kind of nice.
oh yes, Garrett Cole, the one that got away. But no, yeah, I think you're right. I mean, across the board, you've got a pretty even mixture of really good bats, good arms, and everybody kind of going in between. Even though my really good arm, Chris Sale's not pitching where he should be, nevertheless, it'll be interesting to see kind of how it plays out. So, anybody else have any questions for us while we're on?
And staying, we love you. So never forget that.
And he says we, remember. Of course, I wasn't the one bashing your picks, I don't think. Maybe I was. Doesn't matter. All right. Anything else?
I thought Percy was going to post, but maybe not. I think overall it's been a pretty good season, and I am looking forward to having no tank happen this year again. That being said, I guess the final words I will say is we have two positions open, so Mets and Mariners. That being said, not sure about Washington. So if you can find a general manager for those, I would very much appreciate that. And if we can get someone who actually stays long term, maybe there is some form of financial gain for you. But that being said, I love staying.
It sounds like I'm taking a second team and one out of the NL, so I get extra money to put into Boston's coffers. Sounds great. So I love staying.